I hope you can see my screen. Can you all see the screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so the topic we're going to treat this morning is fundamental principles of professional ethics. We will also talk about events and situations that can pose threats to the auditor in terms of applying these fundamental principles of professional ethics. And lastly, we will talk about the safeguards that the auditor can put in place to mitigate the threats to applying these fundamental principles of professional ethics. Have you already taken a course in ethics? Yes. You have already taken a course in ethics?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You have not taken any course in ethics?
Yes, please.
Are you going to take a course in ethics?
Please, I'm here.
Are you going to take any course in ethics?
Maybe not now, but maybe next semester.
It's next year.
It's next year.
semester.
Okay. So that is what we are going to do this morning.
Yes.
The accountancy profession, you can read on IFAC's website on ethics. You will find that the profession is guided by some core fundamental principles of ethics. There are 5 of these core principles. Five of these core principles. So the first box that you are seeing on the screen talks about these 5 key principles of professional ethics. They include integrity, which means the auditors must proceed their work with high level of integrity. The second one is objectivity. Auditors must be objective in carrying out their work. And we all understand why they have to be objective. Because their job is like the job of a referee. Refereeing between 2 teams. The board of directors and management as one team, and the shareholders as the other team. And you are refereeing between them. You need to be very objective. You don't need to be biased. You don't need to be compromising. The third cardinal principle of professional ethics is professional competence and due care. We'll talk about each of them in some more detail. So in this time, I'm just mentioning them. So the third one is professional competence and due care. What generally it means is that auditors must carry out their work in a professional way. They must also be competent in their job as auditors, and they must proceed their work with due care and diligence. The next one is confidentiality. The work of the auditors results in them having access to information of companies, which information, or most of which information, are supposed to be confidential. They are not supposed to be exposed to competitors and other people. So it is a requirement, an ethical requirement of the auditor to be very confidential. But we will talk more about where the limit of confidentiality can go. The last fundamental principle of professional ethics is professional behavior. Okay, so these are the 5 core principles of professional ethics, also known as fundamental principles of professional ethics. We'll talk about them in more detail. Now, let's go to the next box. The next box is talking about threats. These are things that can cause challenges for the auditor in terms of applying the core principles of professional ethics. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them. Self-interest. Issues of self-interest can cause the auditor not to be objective, not to approach the work with integrity, not to be confidential. Issues of self-interest can also force the auditor to put aside professional competence and due care. It can also cause the auditor to not put up a professional behavior. Another threat, the second threat, is self-review. We will talk about it. The third one is advocacy threats, familiarity threats, and intimidation threats. We'll talk about all of them. And lastly, we'll talk about what the auditors can put in place to reduce these threats to the barest minimum so that there are not problems. So let's talk about each of the fundamental principles. Integrity. That's why I wanted to know if you had already taken some course in ethics, but it doesn't really matter if you have or you haven't. Most of the things we're going to talk about here are things we know already. They are, general knowledge stuff. We are saying that auditors must be people of integrity. What does it mean to be a person of integrity? It's a question to class. I need response. What does it mean to be a person of integrity? If you want to answer, then you can mention your name.
Please, Deborah.
Deborah.
Yes. So please, I think integrity means to work with due diligence, to be honest in whatever you do.
Okay, so integrity has a lot to do with honesty. Good. Someone else wants to add something? Okay, so integrity simply means that the auditors need to be very straightforward and honest in all professional and business relationships. They should not be swayed by anything. They should call the spade spade. They should not try to window dress anything. They cannot call the spade a big spoon, because spade is not a spoon. Spade is spade. Straightforwardness, honesty, that is integrity. So if your findings from your audit work points to the fact that a board member or a key management person has breached some rules, and that is actually causing the accounts to be materially misstated, you just have to make that thing known as objective as possible. It shouldn't be like what you have found to be the case. In one instance, it is the case. You will project it as the case as you have found. In another instance, it is not the case. What I mean by this is, as you all know, people deal with situations based on the situation itself and based on the people involved. So, like you can find with our justice system, the same offense, if committed by one person, it can be handled in a different way than if that same offense is committed by another person. That is not integrity. That is not straightforwardness. That is not honesty. The auditor shouldn't do anything like that. So that's about integrity. The second fundamental principle of professional ethics is objectivity. What do you understand by objectivity? Is a question, please.
The absence of bias, being fair, honest, basically.
Good. So by objectivity, you shouldn't be biased. You shouldn't treat the same situation differently based on the people involved or based on even time. So members, that is the auditors, shall not allow bias, conflict of interest, or undue influence from whatever source to override professional or business judgment. Objectivity. We can find some overlaps among the fundamental principles. That's not a problem. So they must all work in concert. They must work together to make the auditors carry out their job the way they are expected to carry them. So you can find some overlap between integrity and objectivity. That is no problem. Let's go to the third one. Professional competence and due care. What can you say about that one? I'm getting a feedback from someone speaker. You have to mute your speaker immediately after talking. Professional competence and due care. What can you say about that? Hello? Professional competence, due care, say something about it. Hello, I'm listening to you, class. For professional competence and due care, just say what you think about it, right? Don't really worry.
Exhibiting the level of skill and professionalism required in that particular field based on research development and learning and other stuff.
Thank you, but I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you well.
So when we talk about professional competence, it means the auditors working with some form of professional knowledge when being like working according to some professional standards.
Okay, that's good. So professional competence, you see, the point is every profession, and in this case the auditing profession, has some body of knowledge that you're supposed to have. They also require that you keep updating that knowledge. So that body of knowledge that the profession thinks every member should have, or you should even have before you qualify to be a member, is what we can describe as professional knowledge. If you have that professional knowledge, all other things being equal, then we can say you are professionally competent. Alright? So what we mean by professional competence is that the auditing profession or the members of the audit firm have a continuing duty to maintain professional knowledge and skill at the level required to ensure that a client company receives competent professional service, audit service, based on current developments in practice. So what are some of the things that will go into professional competence? What are some of the things that the auditors need to do to maintain professional competence? Yes, class. Based on the explanation we have given about professional competence, what do you think are some of the things the auditors need to do to maintain that professional competence, to acquire and maintain that professional competence?
I think that they should be abreast with IAAS laws.
That's good. What again? Okay. First of all of us know what it takes for someone to become a professional accountant. The other time we defined who an accountant is, right? And we said even though auditors are called auditors, they are accountants. And most of the time the people we call accountants in offices are not accountants. Everybody should be okay with that. We explained what or who an accountant is. So before you become an auditor, you have to be an accountant. And you know what is going on. How do people become accountants? And by extension, auditors. How do people become accountants? We are trying to get to know what goes into people acquiring and maintaining professional competence. Yes, class.
By going through the accounting journey and also by writing professional examinations to get titles based on the prerequisite of the accounting as a business.
Okay, what's your name, please?
Gabriel say.
I'm going to award marks to people who contribute in class. Who is the course rep, please? Deborah. Deborah and Josh, are you in class?
Yes.
What's expected to be the class size?
Please, for the guided section is going to be 155. Yes.
155.
Yes, 150 plus.
Okay, so 150 plus. This is what I'm observing. On the Google Classroom platform, I have a little over 90 people. So if you take 90 from someone has his microphone on. If you are not talking, put your microphone off to stop giving us the interference. A little bit over 90 people are on the Google Classroom platform, meaning that some of you are not yet there. And I told you day one that is the means by which I will communicate most information apart from telling course reps. If there is any assignment, it will be posted there. So if you make a choice up till this time not to be on the platform, please do not have any issues with them if you get problems, because you go by the rules from day one. I am teaching you, I've told you, get onto this platform, I'll put information there. Then you decide not to be there. I don't know what you are doing not to be there. All right. So the 150 plus students are all supposed to be there. And in fact, they are all supposed to be in class now. But the point is, I only have 50, less than half of the class in class. Hello?
Say.
Talk, I'm listening.
said, please, some are sharing, let's say, a device. So
Some are doing what?
some are sharing a device, like my shop and my room. We are using my
Okay. Some are sharing devices. So okay, no problem.
Yes,
But
that's
the
why.
point is, everybody needs to be in class. The point I want to make is that if you have your microphone on, please let it go off. Joshua Amfo, put your mic off. If you are not talking, why should your mic be on? The next time I see anybody doing that, I'll take the person from the class. So the point is, if you decide not to be serious with the class, you know there are consequences. You wouldn't be able to understand. I mean, in fact, you wouldn't even get the information I'm communicating, let alone understanding it. And that may translate into you having bad scores. And if you fail, I have not failed you, you have failed yourself. Okay, so let's all be serious. And I'm also going to award some portion of the 40%, the continuous assessment, through class participation. That's why I was asking for the last person who spoke before Deborah. I was asking for his name. So I'll be tracking who are doing meaningful contributions in class, and I'll award marks accordingly. Okay. So please, the person who just spoke before Deborah. Let me get your name again.
Is Gabriel.
Gabriel. Okay, Gabriel helped us with the understanding of what goes into auditors acquiring and maintaining professional competence. And he made mention of the accounting journey. I don't really know what that journey is. Is it journey from Cape Coast to Kumasi?
No, sir. You have to undergo the first degree.
Okay, and what again?
Then afterwards, you write your professional exams to become a chartered accountant.
That's great. But the point is this. The auditing profession does not really require you to have academic qualification like first degree. They don't care about that. They only care about they care about professional knowledge, and what they mean by professional knowledge is the exams that the professional bodies conduct, like ICA Ghana, ACCA Global, ICA England and Wales, AICPA United States, and so on and so forth. So the journey towards acquiring professional competence is by writing these professional qualifications. When you pass, or even in addition to writing those professional papers, you are also expected to be enrolled in a work, or you should be doing something that has to do with what you are learning is about, or what accountancy is about. That is what they call job experience. You're supposed to have some experience in what you are learning. So that makes you complete in terms of acquiring professional competence. Professional knowledge by qualifying the exams, writing and finishing the exams, also performing works in related roles, gaining experience. So when you get a professional competence through these means, you're also supposed to maintain it. How do they normally maintain it? It's a forum, it's a discussion, so everybody should feel free to talk what he thinks. And we are not doing a quiz where we are marking right answers from wrong answers. No. At this point, it's a brainstorming session, so anything is okay. So be bold to speak. What do they normally do to maintain? We have generally talked about what they do to acquire the professional competence. What are they expected to do to maintain it? Because it doesn't work like once a teacher, always a teacher. No. So you have to be maintaining your professional competence, your professional knowledge and skill. You have to be maintaining. Yes, please, the name. The name, please.
Emmanuel.
Yeah, Emmanuel, let's hear you.
Emmanuel.
Yes, Emmanuel, we are listening to you.
Yes, sir. So to maintain professional competence, yes, sir. To maintain professional competence, you have to update yourself with the new standards that come into existence, and also you have to do more research in your field. Thank you.
Okay, that's good. That's very good. So normally this is what they do. They have something they call CPD, Continued Professional Development. And they normally they do this CPD thing through attending seminars. You know, after you have finished writing your papers, so many things will happen which may be new developments that at the time when you were writing the professional papers, the textbooks had not captured them. For example, it could be that someone finished his qualification long before the issue of cryptocurrency became known in the world. But cryptocurrency is here with us. And some clients may be dealing with cryptocurrencies. So, as an auditor, and of course as a professional auditor who has to approach his work with professional competence, how do you get to know, how you audit issues with cryptocurrency? You will need to be updated on developments happening after your qualification. And even it is possible that, that's why you don't need to score 100% to get qualified. You score 50%. 50% means that you can pass without knowing some things at the time of passing, which also require you to be updating, reading. So learning doesn't end. So that is an education for you. Some of you people think that once you finish school, learning has ended. The essence of learning is for you to acquire knowledge. So when you pass all your exam, the minimum pass, 50, it means that you only know at least the things we taught you halfway. So you have to be reading always to update yourself with the other half that you didn't get. Because hardly will you score 100 in all the courses or all the papers you'll be writing before passing. So it's always a good thing to keep reading, keep attending seminars, keep attending other functions about professional knowledge, where new developments are being shared. Some professionals are going to talk about their knowledge and this that can help you do your work, new development that have come and how it affects the job we are doing and how we do the work around such new developments. Mostly there are seminars, there are conferences on some of these things. So CPDs are mostly carried out in these media, in seminars, in conferences, and the rest. So that's how they can maintain their professional competence. For example, we are all aware, we are accounting students, so we know what is happening with the IFRSs. Some of the standards have been revised. Some of them have been scrapped altogether and new ones have come in place. So if you became a chartered accountant before these developments, how do you know? And you are supposed to know as a professional auditor. You can only get to know by attending conferences on some of these issues, seminars, and so on and so forth. Okay. We have professional competence and due care. We have generally talked about professional competence. The due care is simply that you do not need to carry the work haphazardly. You have to carry the work with cautiousness, with care. Okay, so that's what it basically means. So professional competence, the right knowledge and skill, experience should be there. And you also have to be a person who is meticulous. You do your work the way it has to be done. Professional competence and due care. That's what it means. Confidentiality as another fundamental principle of professional ethics. What do you say about that one? Confidentiality. I need a female to talk. The males are dominating the class. 150 plus students. I shouldn't have a problem with who responds to a question. Yes, please talk. I'm listening to you. Nobody is talking. Confidentiality. What do you say about confidentiality? Is a common word. What is your understanding of confidentiality?
The information obtained from the clients during the audit should be kept confidential by the auditor. The auditor shouldn't use the client's information for personal interest or benefit.
Okay, that's good. Doreen Nyankum. Doreen, are you in class? Doreen. We have two Doreens. Doreen Boatin, are you also in class?
Yes, sir.
Doreen Boatin, what do you understand by confidentiality?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So what is confidentiality based on professional principles of fundamental principles of professional ethics? What do you understand by confidentiality, or what can you say about it?
Working as a professional in making sure
Doreen, I'm listening.
going against the ethics.
Okay, I think Doreen has a bad connectivity.
Making sure it's safe profession.
Making sure
You are being professional about your job. That is not sharing info.
okay, not
Communicating
sharing.
about your job with others.
Okay, not bad. Evelyn Edu, are you in class? Evelyn Edu, are you in class? Georgiamo? Georgiamo, are you in class? Ivy. Ivy Ametefe.
Hello there.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Is that Amu?
John. Yes, please.
Okay, George Amo, let's hear you on confidentiality.
Confidentiality is keeping
the information that you still been doing your work secret or not sharing the information outside.
Okay. So when you look at what auditors do, auditors will go to companies, take all the companies' books, and they have the right of access to all the accounts of the book. They ask management and even board members questions in an attempt to measure whether the accounts have been prepared right or not. So they get to acquire a lot of information, most of which are competitive information, most of which, if the company's competitors get hold of, it can be disastrous. The auditors get to know all of these things. And it is not a professional behavior, and it is also not ethical that the auditors become okra-mouth and whisper into a competitor's ears what he has seen or found with a competitor, either deliberately or otherwise. It is not a professional behavior. So that is why, as a professional, for you to be doing your work with confidentiality, auditors are not supposed to be drunkards, always found at beer bars drinking. Because when the alcohol gets over you, you can be speaking things that you are not supposed to be speaking without you being aware you are doing so. So basically, that's what confidentiality is. Confidentiality does not mean that the auditors do not communicate any information about a client. After all, when they finish the audit, they communicate information to the shareholders and the public in general, whether the accounts are true and fair. That is communication of information about the company, but that is no breach. That is no breach of confidentiality. Here we are talking about key competitive information. Information that is almost everything about a company. Information which makes the company what it is. Information that gives the company its competitive advantage. You do not have to share it with other companies, not even other individuals. But does the principle of confidentiality has a limit? I'm asking. Does it have a limit?
Yes, sir.
So what's the limit, please?
Please, I'm thinking when it becomes critical and when it relates to maybe a legal something, then you have to just give it out that those who are in need of it can have hold of it and know what to do.
Okay, so who is speaking now? Is it
Sir, please,
the
the
board?
board.
Okay,
Yes.
that's good. So it has a limit where the information found is a criminal information. It's information that speaks about the fact that this company is engaged in criminal activities, money laundering, human trafficking, and all those businesses that are banned. That's what the company is doing underground. In fact, in this case, the auditor needs to look at public interest over the company's interest of confidentiality. So where unveiling or unearthing that deal of the company, or those activities of the company, will serve public interest, that becomes the overriding issue. It is not really to save the company by being confidential. So that's the limit that confidentiality principle can go. Any questions so far? Any questions?
Yes, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Please, the name.
Yes, please. Emmanuel.
Yeah, Imam.
Sir, please, can an auditor ensure these fundamental principles simultaneously without breaching any of them?
Okay, so that's Imam's question is to the whole class. Can the auditor ensure all of these fundamental principles of ethics without breaching any of them? That's what Imam is asking. Imam needs help in terms of understanding this question. Who can help? Yes.
Sir,
Yes, Deborah.
please. I'm thinking it's not always the time that the auditor can ensure that he uses all the principles. Example with extent to which you can be confidential, like this. You are talking about integrity, and integrity has confidentiality in it, saying it's part of your code of conduct, and it gets to a point where you want or you have to just be frank about a wrongdoing. At that moment, someone can argue out that you work with integrity, though you were objective, you professionally competent, but you didn't work with confidentiality and therefore not integrity. I don't know if you get what I'm saying. Yeah, that's like that.
In fact, I'm struggling a little bit to get what you are saying, but I think it's a good thought. It's a good thought. So that's what Deborah is thinking about, the question that Ima asked, whether the auditor can accomplish all of these requirements in terms of ethics, principles of ethics, without compromising any one of them. In other words, he's asking whether doing too much of one does not result in less of the other. Somehow that's what he's trying to ask. So Deborah has spoken her mind on it. It's not only Deborah who is a female in class, so I need another female to talk. Ivy Ametefe. Ivy. Julieta J. Julieta J, are you in class? Esiedu Lily. So all of these people are not in class, and they expect to understand what I'm teaching in class now. Nancy Mensa. Hello? Hello?
Sir.
Yes, what's your name? I'm listening to you. Someone called my attention. Please, let's hear you. Priscilla Osei. Priscilla Osei. Are you in class? Priscilla Osei, not in class. Rachel Boa. Rachel Boa. Rebecca Esilfi.
Sir.
Is that Rebecca?
Yes, please.
So Rebecca, help us with the question that Ima asked.
Okay, I think your duties should you can perform it, but then it shouldn't override each other. So at the end of the day, you should be able to achieve the main goal of auditing, which is your functions should override each other. That's how I understand it.
Okay, thank you. So what we can say is that, in fact, you can achieve all of them without breaching the other. And this is how I see it to be working. It can rather be that for some of them, before you can achieve them, you must have achieved others first. That is why you see a lot of overlaps between them. For example, for you to be a person of integrity requires more of professional competence. You must have the required level of knowledge and skill and experience. So integrity is a product of professional competence and due care. You cannot be that strong in integrity if you don't know what you are about. You will be shaky. For example, you are going to audit a top class company. Most of the management there being people of high level knowledge, people of a lot of experience, people with global exposure. And you yourself, as the person going to audit them, you have not even been passing your professional papers. So you do not even know the staff well. Naturally, you cannot even be confident before them. And if you're not confident before them, how can you maintain integrity? How can you say that your yes is your yes? How can you be straightforward? Because being a person of integrity sometimes requires you to be tough. People will try to sway you here and there. Others will even try to intimidate. So if you don't know your whereabouts, you cannot, put on that kind of weight. So integrity will require that, first of all, professional competence and due care is there. Integrity will automatically require you to be objective. Integrity will automatically require you to be a person of professional behavior. So that is how I see it. You can achieve all of them, but some of them may depend on you having others first. Okay, so that's how I can answer your question, Iman. Are you okay, or you still have some other question?
Okay, sir. I'm cool with it. Thank you.
Okay. So the last fundamental principle of of professional behavior, professional ethics, is professional behavior. Professional behavior. How would we talk about professional behavior? Professional behavior. We normally use some expression like, oh, this guy is a professional. We say that because we see a lot of professional behavior from such a person. What is professional behavior? Samuel Jekete. Samuel Jekete. Absent. I'm marking registered. Samuel Osei. Samuel Osei. Selina Kwam. Selina Kwam. Stanley Akwete. All of you are absent. Okay, so who wants to speak on professional behavior? So you see, every profession has some prescribed way of behavior. The behavior can manifest in the form of how they dress, how they speak, and where they want to be and where they don't want to be. All of them go into professional behavior. And most professions prescribe how their members should behave. So if you behave in accordance with what the profession has prescribed to be your behavior, we can say that you are behaving professionally. That is professional behavior. So for example, auditors, you normally see auditors dress in some way, some particular way. That is a professional behavior which is being required by the profession. You normally also see that auditors do not do certain things. Auditors do not take bribes, and so on and so forth. I don't really know whether they take or they don't take, but they are expected. It's a professional behavior, they don't take those things. When they live in accordance with those prescribed behavior, that is professional behavior. Let's take ourselves from auditing a little bit. Maybe that can help us understand. On campus, you can find that those students reading, as in medicine, they have a particular way of dressing. I think the guys are always in suits, tie. I think minimum is just tie if you don't want to put on suits. It's part of the behavior thing. If you go to professions like boxing and wrestling, the profession has a prescription of some behavior that their members should put up, or some behavior that they shouldn't put up when they are in the public domain. For example, a boxer or wrestler can never beat some other person. I mean, if you don't have a fight, a person on the streets, no matter how the person provokes you, it is against professional behavior for you to use your hand on someone. Okay. So all of these things are prescriptions of behavior from the profession. And the auditor, in this case, should behave in strict accordance with the behavior that the profession is requiring them to put up. The profession requires auditors not to be drunkards, not sitting at a roadside watching bench. An auditor, then you are sitting at some roadside eating wachi. Roadside eating wachi. That's not a professional behavior. An auditor, then you are always in jersey dress, as if you are a footballer. An auditor who has the way the footballers cut their hair. That's how his haircut is like. Auditors don't do that. The profession doesn't require you to behave like that. Auditors don't fight in public. Auditors don't fight, they don't insult, they don't fight with clients, giddy, 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 giddy. Auditors do not compete with their competitor auditors. It's not a professional behavior. So that's what professional behavior is. Any questions?
Yes, sir.
Deborah?
Sir, please, if an auditor permits marry more wives and have a lot of girlfriends.
Interesting. So to the whole class, Deborah is asking whether auditor is professionally or is not against professional behavior for auditor to marry more wives and having plenty girlfriends. Please, that's a question to all of us. Please, the name.
Okay.
The name again, please. The name again and speak out, please. Yes, another person can talk if he's not ready. So what do you say to Deborah on the question she asked?
Sir, please, an auditor can marry as many wives as he wants.
Please the name. Hello, your name?
Sir, please, Evelyn.
Evelyn, okay. So that's what Evelyn thinks. It says an auditor can marry as many wives as he wishes. But Debbie, when you were asking the question, I don't think if you have some gender prejudice, do you have something against males for marrying more wives?
Sir, please, no. Normally, it's males that marry more.
Okay, I get you. Because the way you ask the question is as if auditors are only males. So, can the auditor marry more wives and have more girlfriends, or marry more husbands and have more boyfriends? Because some female auditors, even if we cannot see them to be having more husbands, they can be having more boyfriends. So it's a two-edged question. It cuts both sides. So we are hearing from the audience, from ourselves, that auditors can marry as many wives as they want. I think from Evelyn. In fact, I don't really know, because I don't know whether it's a professional behavior if an auditor has two wives or he doesn't. I don't really know, because there are some things the regulations will not be clear on them. There are some things that regulations even don't talk about. So maybe the interpretation of professional behavior, whether it cuts into that line, that form of marriage line, maybe it can only be determined in court. Then the judges will interpret whether marrying more and having more boyfriends or girlfriends is also part of the definition of professional behavior. But in any way, this is the conflict. In some jurisdictions, polygamy is an accepted way of life of the people. The fact that other group of people don't see it to be correct for them does not make what others see to be good for them a wrong thing. For example, if you go to some places, it's a normal part of life that when they are coming to have a meal, they have some alcoholic beverage besides. And there's nothing wrong with it for them. That same way of behavior is a serious wrongdoing in some other area. So who has the right to judge who is the point. Because the concept of a man marrying more than one wife was an accepted way of life for some people who lived, so many years ago. If you look at the culture, the marriage culture of the people, the Jewish people, they were polygamous. So many places in the world, that's how they were married, including Africa. And that was an accepted way of life in society. So it is right for them. If it is right for them, I don't see whether another group of people have the power to judge them, to say that because it is not right for them, it is not right universally or globally. So that's sometimes the controversy. The issue of some of these ethical behaviors become political. That is why US can go and bomb another country, kill civilians, innocent women and children. And they don't see anything wrong with it. They don't give it any names. In fact, they say they are cleaning the world of mess. But if another country comes to do the same thing to the US, it is interpreted as terrorism. When they do the same thing, it is no terror. It's no terrorism. So that's how political it is when it comes to some of these behaviors. So I can't answer your question directly, Debbie. I can only speak around it like I'm doing.
Yes, sir.
I hope you're okay.
Yes, sir. Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so this is where we end discussions on the principles of professional ethics, fundamental principles, the key 5 principles: integrity, objectivity, professional competence, and due care, confidentiality, professional behavior. We've taken our time to discuss all of them. Now, there are certain things that can really make it hard for the auditor to be a person of integrity, to be objective, to be working with competence and due care, to be confidential, to be a person of professional behavior. There are certain things that can make it hard for the auditor to do all of these things. We call them threats to fundamental principles of ethics. Threats to them. And we have 5 of these threats. These 5 are like containers. You can have individual issues that go into each of the containers. So it's like grouping like items. So all issues that have to do with self-interest, we put them under self-interest as self-interest threats. Self-interest threats. There's also another threat to the application of fundamental principles of ethics. That is self-review threats. Self-review threats. And we'll talk in detail about self-review threats. May not be obvious like self-interest threats. Without even, digging deep into what constitutes self-interest, most of you have some good understanding of what it will be. But self-interest might not be that straightforward. We'll talk about it as we move on. Advocacy threats. We'll also talk about that one. Familiarity threats and intimidation threats. So 5 threats. Let's take them one after the other. Self-interest threats. All of us know something about what self-interest is. So in connection with the auditor carrying out his work with these fundamental principles of professional ethics, what can you say about self-interest, right? In connection with what we have already discussed about fundamental principles of professional ethics. What can you say about self-interest? What generally can you say? You should be free to talk. What can you say? Solomon Kofi. Solo is absent from class. Sarajatu Luri.
Okay.
Who is speaking?
Surajat.
Okay, Sirajatu. Thank you for the right pronunciation. Let's listen to you.
Your personal interest is professional work.
Okay. When your personal interest comes into conflict with your professional work. That's very good. What again can you also say? Does anyone want to say something in addition?
Please, when your
Please the name.
Nancy.
Yeah, Nancy.
And please, when your personal interests override your professional competence, like your professional work, your personal interest overrides that one.
That's good. So there can be so many things that can happen that will explain that your self-interest or your selfish interest is overriding your professional work. Let's look at some of them. Financial interests. If a key member of the audit firm who is auditing the client company is having a financial interest, the financial interest can come in the form of maybe that key member being a majority shareholder or having some substantial amount of shares in the company. Remember that besides the auditors doing their work as auditors, they also pursue their self-interest, one of which can be how they maximize their money. So they can put their money in several investments of their choice. So they can buy shares in a company that they think is doing well. They can invest in cryptocurrency. They can do all the things that everybody is doing. So it's normal that one of the key audit people can have shares in the company it is auditing. But here, what makes it a threat? The reason why we are saying it is a threat is that because we are not concluding that once the auditor has, let's say, shares in the client company, then it means that automatically, the auditor is not going to be professional. No. It can be a threat. It can be something that can disturb you, so which you need to know ahead of time and do something about. So self-interest, he has those shares in the company. The threat is that if being objective in revealing what is happening in the company will cause the company's share price to probably get wiped off, which means your investment is totally gone, you may, or that can push you into deciding that you're not going to be truthful. Because when you become truthful, your interest is also affected. That's a threat to fundamental principles of professional ethics. So that is financial interest, which can be in the form of shares. It can also be in the form of other securities and other means. Close business relations. Close business relations. That is a little bit similar to the financial interest, which can mean that because of that close business relations, you in an issue of conflict, you may be tempted to save the business relation as opposed to being professional. If being professional will probably make you lose the business relation, you may be looking at the business relation more than being professional doing the work, which makes a threat to the principles of professional ethics. Employment with assurance client. Employment with a client company. The employment can be that maybe as being an auditor, you also have some engagement with a client company. The money you make from the business you are doing with a client company can overshadow your interest in being a professional. So that makes it a threat. The employment with the assurance client can be in the form of the client giving you so much of what we call non-audit services. We'll talk about it in some detail as we move on. Non-audit services. Non-audit services. The main work that the auditors do is go and perform the audits. But when they get to the client can give them a lot of works, consultancy works. So the client can say that, oh, we think the auditor, you have a lot of capacity, you have a lot of people who are knowledgeable, and you have a lot of, you have the capacity. So we want you to be overseeing our tax issues for us. We want you to be overseeing our internal control issues for us. It is allowed in many parts of the world for the auditors to do that. That is not part of the core audit. So that's some business is getting. So, and when you get that business, like the client company has employed you somehow. So in that case, if you don't take care, you might be more interested in that business aspect. And you may want to save that business, that kind of engagement in non-audit services with a client more than being professional, saying what the issue is without compromise. Self-interest can also come in the form of a partner of a key member of the audit team being on the client company's board. So let's say I'm the audit partner for a team that is going to audit ABC company, and my wife is a board member. In the world, it happens a lot. Here in the University of Cape Coast, if you go to many of the sections of the university, you can find in many of these units the son or the daughter of the registrar, the nephew of the registrar, and so on and so forth. So people do that kind of connection, but not a bad connection anyway. So the auditor, because of having contact with the client company and maybe making friends with some of the top people, can find a job for the wife. And that job can be as high as the wife being on the board. The reason why we are flagging the wife being on the board is that if the wife is on the board, then the wife wields power to influence the direction of the company. And therefore, whether the company is succeeding or is not succeeding can have so much to do with the wife as well. The wife including the other board members. If the auditor comes to that determination Would he save his wife? Would he save his partner or her partner? Would he look like what will happen to the partner going to jail for 30 years? Or he will look at the profession, he will look at the job. He may be self-interested. The self-interest is the wife is a self. That's how you have to understand the self-interest thing here. The wife is part of his self. So when he becomes self-interested, then he will go the wife's way. Think about what he will get or what he will lose, and not do the work that he's been employed to do, actually. Self-interest can also feature in the form of family and personal relationships between the audit firm and the client company. So the audit partner is the key person or the senior most person on the audit team, and who will be the final person to write the opinion as to whether the accounts are true and fair. If the audit partner's son has married the managing director of the client company's daughter, they begin to build family and some personal relationships, which can pose self-interest threats. So at a split point, do you look at what your family, because you have built that family connection, do you look at what you will lose as family, what will happen to you as family, or you look at your professional work? Self-interest, threat. Self-interest threats can also come in the form of gifts and hospitality. When the auditors go to audit the client gives them nice treats, takes them to so many places, the client spends on them. Client distributes to the audit team what they call in Ghana brown envelopes. Gifts and hospitality. Client company takes you to the most expensive hotel, the most expensive sightseeing points in the country. Gifts and hospitality. When it comes to being a judge, being a referee, would you be fair? Will you not be swayed by all the beautiful, all the expensive treats that you've been receiving from the auditor and try to save them? Would you be able to be fair to say that that person who has become so much a good friend, lavishing on you expensive gifts, hospitality, would you be bold to say that, my friend, despite all these treats, you have to go to jail, if being fair will mean he has to go to jail? So it poses a huge threat of self-interest. Would you look at self? Would you look at yourself? Because when you want to go by, oh, I will not be comfortable because of the friendship I have formed with her, then you are looking at self, as opposed to what the job requires you to be doing. Self-interest threat. Overdue fees can also feature as a self-interest threat. Auditor, you have performed work. Client company says, oh, auditor, things are not too well, so let's pay 10%. When they pay you 10%, they owe you 90%. You have not paid. Next year audit, you still come and do. That one too, they don't pay, they pay small. Or sometimes they don't pay at all. They will tell you, oh, auditor, take time for us, things are not going well, let's pay you this time, that time comes, no payment. So the audit fee, the charges that they have to pay you for your audit services is becoming unduly overdue. And yet you are still okay. It's going on like that. It can feature as a self-interest threat. This is how it can become a self-interest threat. If you don't take care, your mind will be hijacked by the amount of money that the company owe you, that they have to pay you. Because you need your money, that's your self-interest. So if anything should happen that the company cannot pay you that money, and you have to sanction that. You will not sanction that. You will not sanction that to lose your money. It can come in that form. Contingent fees. Contingent fees can also become a threat to, a self-interest threat to professional ethics. What is contingent fees? Accounting students, you have learned a lot of things, contingent. So borrow the idea from accounting. What can you say about contingent fees? Who is speaking? Please help us. The interference is so bad.
Hello, sir. Is it better?
If you are not speaking, get your microphone off, please. Don't force me to take people out of the class. Okay, so who is speaking?
Sir, please. Hello.
Yes, what's the name, please?
Deborah.
Okay, Debbie.
I think so if there is an if
Deborah, are you using loudspeakers? Debbie.
Hello, sir.
I couldn't hear what you said. Can you repeat yourself?
Sir, please. I'm thinking based on something. So if there is an
okay, that's good. That's good. That's contingent fees. Okay, so you can get your microphone off for us. So contingent fees is where the payment of the audit fee to the auditor is conditioned on something happening or not happening. It's conditioned on something. That becomes a threat, a self-interest threat, because it can force you, the auditor, to focus on what that condition is that qualifies you to get that fee they are pledging, as opposed to focusing on the professional requirements. If your fee is contingent on something, which means you will get paid when that thing happens, for example, and you will not get paid, or you will not get as much as you are requiring if that thing doesn't get happen. If your fee is structured this way, then I bet you will be 100% focused on that condition that should happen for you to get all your money. And you wouldn't have time to look at what the profession requires you to do. In that case, you'll be looking at self. You'll be turning your back to the profession. Self-interest threat. Okay, so these are some of the examples. And you have the textbook, read for the rest. So that is self-interest threat to fundamental principles of professional ethics. Let's go to the second one, self-review threats. Self-review simply means, let me use an example for you to understand. An example, clear example of self-review is when you are students, okay, who are taught and who are examined happen to be the same people to be setting your questions, marking them, and providing yourself with the grades and the classes. What do you think you'll be doing? Hello? What do you think you'll be doing if you find yourself in such a situation? Hello? Are you in class? Are you sleeping?
Say you are not sleeping. In this case, you give yourself marks you don't deserve. That's my opinion.
Okay, that's exactly what is going to happen. So, if you have to mark your own script, mark your own end of semester paper, you will not be objective. You will not be honest. If you see pass udigu, now we feel it. With you, I am a person of integrity. I am objective. So I will mark it the way it should be marked. Now I feel it. If you grow failure, you say you would. You can hardly do that. So you cannot be objective. You cannot be professional. You cannot be a person of integrity if you are reviewing your own work. See how people write their CVs. Who has in his CV just a little bit of one of the bad things he's been doing? Everybody has been doing some bad things, isn't it? At least they are bad in the meantime because society says they are. Sometimes with a lapse of time, some things that used to be bad becomes no more bad. So let's say at least what society is saying now, it is bad. Everybody has been doing some bad things, sometimes, somewhere. Why is it that when you are writing your CV, you don't become very objective to include some of those things? But you write, sometimes even exaggerate the potentials that you are writing. You write only about good things and you even exaggerate them. That's what you do when you are self-reviewing. So if auditors do certain things, it can constitute the auditors reviewing themselves. Just like we've done for the self-interest threat by looking at some specific things that can indicate self-interest. And that's how the exam questions will basically be like. It will not be bam, self-interest. You'll be given specific issues in a case that communicate self-interest, and it's your job to take them, to kind of identify these issues and speak on them in terms of how they are, the threats that you are saying they are. So self-review. What are some of the things that can, specific things that can indicate self-review? So something like the audit firm preparing accounting records and even financial statements for the client. I told you before, it is allowed in many parts of the world. In fact, it used to be allowed globally. It's only after some company collapses that some countries, notably the United States, is banning auditors from preparing accounts for the client. But even with the move that US is banning, so many other places, it is a little bit flexible, just that the regulation has been increased a little bit. But auditors, the audit firms still can prepare accounting records for the client company. So let's look at the situation. The auditor's job is to go and assess the validity of the accounts. Which accounts are produced from the client's accounting system. Then you are given that consultancy job as an auditor to, for example, set the controls for the company. Okay, so let me talk about that one first. I'll come back to the preparation of the account because they are all linked. So the auditor, you are given that consultancy job of setting up the client's control systems, all the systems, so that if you go to the accounts office, which book should be kept, from which book to which book, how do we do certain things. All of those things constitute the control system. That job has been given to you, the auditor, because you have that enormous knowledge about, business systems to define, design, implement the client's internal control system. And you well know that your job is to assess the feedback from these systems. It is these systems that will produce the accounts that you are going to audit. It is these systems that will produce the final accounts, the financial statements. And you set them up. And you are the same person who set them up, who is going to review, or who is going to audit, who is going to assess the product of that setup. You can't be objective. When the system that you yourself designed and implemented for the client has produced erroneous accounts which materially misstates the financial statement, you cannot be objective to say that the accounts, the systems are bad and the accounts they are producing are wrong, because you did them. It will be that you are saying you are not good, and you'll be looking at yourself. That bad feeling and that kind of bad name you will get, you'll be more interested in saving yourself than speaking the truth that the systems are wrong and the accounts are also wrong. That's self-review. Self-review. You did it, and you're the same person going to assess it. Would you be objective to say it is wrong when indeed it is wrong? So that is an issue that can happen that can represent self-review threats. Tax services. So they are all in the same line. Service providing non-audit services for the client. So I've talked about setting up. Yes, Deborah.
Please.
Your speaker is very, very, very loud.
Okay.
It always throws a feedback. Can you do something about it?
No. Okay. I want to say that that class in the next class, in the next 10 to 20 minutes, please. If
Okay. So some of you will be leaving for class in the next 20 minutes. Is that what she said?
yes, and the time is from maybe almost time up.
Okay, so I'll be wrapping up now so you can leave for the other lecture. Okay, so what we are saying about, let me conclude on the self-review, then we can go. So preparation of non-audit services in the form of, getting that consultancy job of setting up the client controls, preparing accounts for the client. The client can even give you valuation work. You are a valuer, you are determining the value of, is one of the jobs auditors do. Tax services. The client gives you all the tax issues in the company because they think you have knowledge and you are doing them. And you are the same person who will come back to audit issues that may have to do with tax. Internal audit service. The client gives you internal audit service to provide for them. You will come and audit. Please, your microphone is on, put it off. Who is disturbing like that? So, internal audit service you are providing for the client. It will constitute self-review. You will come back and audit the same system. Corporate finance services, because you will come back and audit the same company. And other services. So it's more in the form of if the audit company or audit firm, is providing non-audit services for the clients, and you may have to come back and audit these same services you are providing for the client. That constitutes self-review threats. Okay. So we are left with advocacy threats, familiarity, and intimidation threats. So go and read on them ahead of time. And when are we meeting again? So this is last week's lecture, right? So we are meeting next week. Is it Monday?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
The Monday is 1 hour, right?
Yeah, that is 1 hour.
Okay, so the Monday, maybe I will come, maybe I will not come. But I will definitely be at lecture on Tuesday.
Okay. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, so at this point, any question?
No question, sir. No question, sir.
Okay. Okay, so this is where we end the class for today. I'm reminding you of the mid-term paper. You have to be reading to do a good work.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.